The Fujifilm X-H2S is using Sony's IMX671 sensor. Is this the same sensor that will go in the new ZV camera? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so you're kept informed on the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. Sony Addict has the IMX671-AAPH spec sheet, which I've got for you right here, and they've confirmed that it's the same sensor that's in the Fujifilm X-H2S, although they're saying that Fuji isn't fully utilizing the sensor. This is the same sensor that just yesterday Photo Rumor said is going to be going in the ZV camera. It's a BSI stacked sensor. So let's first of all talk about the sensors here. The Sony ZV-1, the first vlogging camera that Sony came up with a couple of years ago in the ZV line, had a 1-inch BSI stacked sensor, and I kind of fell in love with that camera. It was designed for vloggers. I get it, it wasn't as good as the Sony A7S III or the Canon R5 or R6, but as a vlogging camera under $1,000, it was terrific. Well, then Sony came out with the ZV-E10, and this camera, well, it didn't have a BSI or a stacked sensor, it just had a standard CMOS sensor. And now we're hearing various rumors from Photo Rumors and Sony Addict, and these are sister sites of each other, stating that we're getting a new camera. This is most likely going to be the ZV Mark II or some other camera that is a step above the ZV Mark I, which had that BSI stack sensor. Again, it was a 1-inch sensor, whereas this sensor that's in the Fujifilm X-H2S, the Sony IMX671-AAPH, is an APS-C sensor. And again, if we look at that Fujifilm camera, the X-H2S, it's considerably more expensive than what we normally see for the ZV product line. Both the ZV Mark I and the ZV-E10 are all under $1,000, whereas clearly the Fuji X-H2S is over $2,000, $2,499. That's a very big difference in price. But wait, there's more. Sony Addict believes that this new camera, this new ZV product line camera, whether it be the ZV-1 Mark II or some other name, is going to have some pretty astonishing video capabilities. 4K up to 120 frames per second, full sensor readout, 6.2K up to 60 frames per second. Now let's just think about those numbers for a minute. 4K up to 120 frames per second, full sensor readout, 6.2K up to 60 frames per second. These are pretty impressive video capabilities. And to put this in a ZV product, a camera that normally sells for under $1,000, around $600, $700, to have the same sensor that's found in the Fujifilm X-H2S, a camera that sells for $2,500, it's a bit of a hard pill to swallow. And Sony could go ahead and do this, but a BSI stacked sensor for an APS-C centered camera isn't going to be cheap. I'm really curious to know how this could happen. Now, it is possible that they come out with a new and improved ZV camera that costs, well, quite a bit more. But I'm having trouble justifying the price, trying to figure out what the price is for this camera and whether these rumors are actual rumors based on leaked specifications or they're rumors based on somebody's wild idea of what the ZV-1 Mark II could potentially be. But again, let's go back to those video specs. 4K to 120 frames per second, full sensor readout. That gives us around 25, 26 megapixels on that sensor. Oversampled video, producing some pretty incredible results. On an APS-C censored camera, the only other APS-C censored camera that I'm aware of out there that has a BSI stacked sensor is the Fujifilm X-H2S, which uses the same IMX671-AAPH. AAPH, is that the right? Did I say that correctly? I think I did. AAPH, yep, based on the spec sheet from Sony, a ZV camera that would be around $600, $700, even $800 or even $900 to me. Producing these specifications would be truly impressive. We only have to look at the Sony A7S III. It's capable of 4K up to 120 frames per second. 4K up to 120 frames per second for a camera that costs around $3,500. This is a much more expensive camera. I just can't see how, and I get that it's full frame, but I just can't see how a ZV product camera with an APS-C sensor that's BSI and stacked is going to be priced right around $600 or $700. This would lead me to believe that it's not going to be a ZV product after all. I don't know. What do you think? I'm still very much confused about this. I keep bouncing all over the place. Having an APS-C sensor that's BSI and stacked in a camera isn't surprising. Having a camera that can do 4K up to 120 frames per second also isn't surprising. But having these specifications and a product line that's aimed at under $1,000 to me is purely baffling. Just look at how many cameras that can do 4K up to 120 frames per second. And I don't think you're going to find any of them under, well, $2,000. 4K at 120 frames per second. We can look at the Panasonic GH6. We can look at the Nikon Z9. No surprising, it's a flagship mirrorless camera. The Canon EOS R5. Again, no surprising. That camera costs $3,800. The Sony Alpha 1. Again, no surprises there. That's an expensive flagship mirrorless camera. And of course, the A7S III. Just over $3,000 at around $3,400 or $3,500. I don't know what to say here. And that's the problem with covering rumors, is sometimes you're presented with stuff that's too good to be true. And sometimes, like in 2020, when we got rumors of the Canon EOS R5, they were too good to be true, but it was true. And this new camera that Sony's coming out with, having a BSI stacked sensor on an APS-C sensor that can produce 4K up to 120 frames per second, 6.2K up to 60 frames per second, IBIS, and a whole bunch of other wonderful specifications. Well, that's not hard to do. It's pretty common, but to be able to do it in a ZV product line, a product line that has not yet sold a camera above $1,000 as just a base unit itself, that to me would really wow me. It'd be very impressive, and it would be Sony with a new strategy that I'm not quite aware of what Sony's trying to do. So really, really interesting stuff. I'm going to stop just rambling on here. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Do you think that these are just somebody's wild ideas of what a camera could be put out in terms of leaked specifications when they aren't? Do you think it's just some really interesting analysis and opinion? It's nothing credible. Or could it be alluding to another camera that Sony's coming out with? It's not the ZV product line, it's something else, because we do know that some of the alphas in the APS-C line do need, well, a bit of a refresh. And this to me would make an awful lot more sense to get an A6800, 6900, 71, I don't know, whatever numbers Sony gives. I'm really confused by these numbers because they kind of go up and down and all over the place. The 6200 isn't necessarily worse than the 6300, which isn't necessarily better than the 60. The numbers just go all over the place, and I always find it hard to follow. To me, the numbers always seem to should go in one direction. They get better with the number as it increases in its value, or it gets worse, not all over the place. But that's just me. Look, if I was a Sony customer for many years, the numbers wouldn't bother me. I'd get it. I'd understand that the A6500 is obviously better than the 6400, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you want to stay up to date on the latest news and rumors, especially what's going on with this new ZV product, or this, I'm still just baffled by all of it. If you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors, go ahead and subscribe, but make sure you choose all notifications. It's very important. By choosing all notifications, YouTube will notify you as soon as I publish a new video, and so that way you can stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors without having to search down Twitter feeds, various websites, or YouTube sites. You can get it all at one location. But that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.